Popeye's Scary Good new Freddy Fazbear Box has garlic palm tenders and cheesy bites with marinara sauce. Try it before it's too late. And see Five Nights at Freddy's 2, only in theaters. Love that chicken from Popeyes. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants.
John Legend, Sheryl Crow, Elvis Costello, and Alanis Morissette star in the MGM Plus original series, Words and Music. Iconic artists share intimate performances and the stories behind the songs. New episodes Sundays on MGM Plus.
Atheists, agnostics, long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans.
The government, hug the government, love the government, hug the government, love.
Welcome to The Politics Guys, a place for bipartisan, rational, and civil debate on American politics and policy. I'm Trey Warndorf, a political scientist from Oklahoma Christian University, and I'm joined by Justin Holmes, a professor of political science at the University of Northern Iowa. Justin, welcome to the Midweek Ideologies show.
Hey, it's good to be here.
It is good to be here. And just to get all of our listeners up to speed, the two of us, we have been going through in these episodes looking at the different contemporary political ideologies, which I think is just a ton of fun. I love that. We don't often get a chance to kind of get into philosophy or ideologies. Maybe we'll do another series eventually on philosophy. But anyway, we'll put that aside for a minute. But we've been going through ideologies, and we started very kind of classically. We took a look at liberalism, both classical and modern. Then we moved on. We've talked about conservatism. And today we're really going to focus in on Marxism. And we're going to move from there. Now, to be clear, there is a lot of maybe definitional confusion, let's say, Justin, when it comes to Marxism versus communism versus socialism, or is socialism not, Marxism?
And having spent a little time reading up on some of this, I mean, nobody fights about what Marxism is more than Marxists. So
heavens, you would think it was libertarians and anarchists, but no. It's Marxists.
Yeah.
Because you got Marxists and Neo-Marxists and...
Precisely. Yeah.
And it starts getting crazy. But so we're going to be focusing today on Marxism, but that does mean we'll be talking a scooch about some elements of socialism. I'll leave some of that open, but our focus really is Marxism. And I want to be honest with you, as a matter for listeners, I mean, Marxism is I don't think we need the adjective probably. I think it is the most complex of the ideologies that we're going to look at. There is an argument to be made that even the idea of ideology, in a systematic way, comes from Marx most specifically, because he's trying to be this very systematic version about it. And so let's get a little bit into that, and then we can kind of talk about this. So Karl Marx, he works with a guy named Friedrich Engels. And by works with, it's not that Engels doesn't do anything, but he's primarily the bankroller for Karl Marx, which I guess there is some irony in that, right? So Marx
it's very much like Ayn Rand taking Social Security, but yeah.
Yes, which she does, by the way, friends. We'll get to that too.
And Karl Marx was, kind of some Nepo baby's, pet project.
Yeah, exactly. Kill all of the capitalists except for the ones that bankroll
Daddy Engels.
Yeah, Daddy. Exactly. You gotta have Daddy. Who's your Daddy Engels? Listen, we need to bring that into a paper phrase right there, Justin.
I've already. This is a new record. I think you're 3 minutes in, and I've already completely sidetracked this. But anyway,
no, it's good.
Continue your intro. You're doing a lovely job, and I'm discussing problems.
So what he publishes is probably the most important piece to start with. In 1884 is the Communist Manifesto, which he'll then follow later with a very dense book called Das Kapital. And what Marx, listen, we're gonna put it in the simple way, and then we're gonna get a little bit more in depth here in a second. In a simple way, what Marx is attempting to do is take a philosopher named Hegel's philosophic structure about historical materialism and superstructures and apply it to economics. Now that sounds really easy, but in practice, it's not the easiest or neatest thing to work on. So, what is Marx really trying to do? We'll get to some of that Hegelianness as well. At base, what Marx is doing is critiquing what he saw as industrial capitalism and is trying to argue for increasing and improving the conditions of the working class. Now, that gets bantered about today in a variety of ways, but the era in which Marx is writing is vastly different from ours, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to overstate how different it is. And primarily when we're talking about workers, in this sense, we're talking about individuals doing very dangerous things in industrial spaces when they have all kind of been recently pushed closer together in urban ways. And even that urbanization pales in comparison to later urbanization.
This is Jason Momoa, and I'll be your finance professor today. Welcome to Banking Smarter 101 with Chime. Bam! First lesson, sign up for Chime and set up direct deposit. You'll be joining millions of members banking fee-free. Second lesson, get cash back on eligible purchases while building credit and a higher APY on your savings. That's how you bank smarter this season. Fa-la-la-la-la, class dismissed. Join Chime today.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and a secure Chime Visa credit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Optional services and products may have fees or charges. Details at chime.com/fees-info. With a qualifying direct deposit, earn 1.5% cash back on eligible secure Chime Visa credit card purchases. On-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Results may vary. APY means annual percentage yield. Learn about credit building and more at chime.com.
This episode is brought to you by Ulta Beauty. Holiday cheer is here, and Ulta Beauty has gifts for everyone on your list. Treat them to fan-favorite gift sets from Charlotte Tilbury and Peach and Lily. Go all out with timeless fragrances from YSL, Ariana Grande, and Carolina Herrera. And you can never go wrong with an Ulta Beauty gift card. Head to Ulta Beauty for gifts that make the holidays brighter and even more beautiful. Ulta Beauty. Gifting happens here.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
When you own your own business, you need to keep things moving. Need to book a last-minute flight? Earn a $300 travel credit to cover that. Need to take a meeting before takeoff? Do it from the comfort of the Chase Sapphire Lounge by the club. Need to catch your breath before you board? Done. With $2,500 in annual value, the new Chase Sapphire Reserve for Business is the card that gives back all you put in. Visit chase.com/reserve business to learn more. Cards issued by JPMorgan Chase Bank, N.A. member FDIC, subject to credit approval. Terms apply.
And so Marxists argue that there are two main classes occurring contemporaneously in their era in what Marx calls capitalism. One is the ruling class, or the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, and the other is the exploited class, or what the Marxist calls the proletariat, and that dominates the era of capitalism. Now, okay, how do we get to capitalism and how does that work? Well, the answer goes back to Hegel. So Marx argued that there is this kind of, he's a historical determinist. That means that history is going to move in a particular direction. It has to move in a particular direction. And for Marx, the thing that defines each era of history is the economic superstructure, or the relationship between these. And he effectively has 5 major eras of history. And his thought, and this is where we start to get to these ideas of communism and socialism, what he thought eventually was going to occur was that capitalism would implode because the proletariat would rise up and bring down the bourgeoisie. And that's what the Communist Manifesto in 1884 is all about, right? Working men of the world unite. We're going to come together and we're going to take over. And he thought this was not just rational, but it had to happen, right? It was. We can talk more about the thesis and the antithesis of the Hegelian system that Marx borrows. But that's what's going to happen. It's going to move you forward. And once you have that, the proletariat will take control. And for a while, the state will control things. And that's an era of communism. So for a while, we kind of got to break down the issues and the structures. But eventually, the state, in Marx's words, will wither away and will end up in socialism. That's the last stage of history. And I mean, that's probably the most bare bones version of Marxism that I can give and make it meaningful. I've been working on that for a minute to try to get to a point where I thought we can at least understand a starting point. There's more we got to get to, but that's a starting point. What did I miss, Justin? Help me out.
I'd say that hits the bulk of it. I mean, so where I think we can, go with this is, the we don't want to get into the infinity permutations of this, but it kind of it was not joking when I said, nobody fights over Marxism more than Marxists.
No, that was serious.
In terms of what it means. So, I think there are, just as a little bit of add-on or framework here, there is a sort of a political and an academic component to Marxism. And in some ways, the political is maybe the most ambiguous, in some ways. I think so, we get kind of this Marxist perspective in certain strains of academia, and having had a class with an actual Marxist, I will say that, those caricatures of all academics being Marxist is not very accurate, generally speaking. He was the one Marxist out of 35 political science faculty at the University of Illinois. The one honest to goodness Marxist. But I mean, there is, kind of the economics of it, the history of it. It's got a psychology, as part of it. But then there is sort of that economic thing that or the political that flows out of it, which I would argue is maybe even the weakest part in terms of what that's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
There is, I think what is the clearest, and I appreciate that you root this in Hegel, is that it is what's clearest is kind of the mode of analysis, if you will, and the kind of framework for understanding history. I think what's substantially less clear, even out of Marx, is what do you do with that? Apart from uniting and losing your chains, what comes next is a little fuzzier. And then the applications of it become a whole lot messier still, because you have any number of things that lay claim to sort of the title of Marxist and the influence of Marx, which often don't have much in common with each other, nor necessarily with Marx. And
let's be specific there, and we're going to get into the weeds a little bit here. But you're hitting on this, and I know what you're trying to do. You're trying not to use these terms because they get weird. But see, Hegel argued that it was ideas that drove history. He is his own continental logic, sometimes called. And so what drives history is ideas. Marx argued that everything was material. And so he wanted to take that. And so for Marx, the centerpiece, this kind of Hegelianness of the materialist nature of Marx, is that what determines the era of history is the means of production. Yep. So as this very material thing we can touch, and that's sometimes why you hear Marxism called scientific, because it should be something that we can observe and touch, right? So when we get
and frankly, even us talking about the history of ideas would be like weird to Marxism in its way, as we're doing this, because it's not about ideas. We should be out there touring factories or something, for this podcast.
No, absolutely, because there is nothing that's not material, which is one of the critiques of Marxism, as a matter of fact. But we'll get to that.
We'll get there. Yep.
And I think that is, and what's weird, and I think as kind of as political scientists, one of the underlying problems from Marxism, for our point of view, is that everything else that's not the superstructure, that's not the mode of production, pretty much gets tossed into the ash heap of
It's all
things,
false
right?
consciousness.
Exactly. Law, religion, cult, art, family, all of that. That's just trying to, pull the wool over your eyes of reality behind the reality, which is the economic reality, right? So, unfortunately, I have to interrupt myself right there because this brings us to the end of our ad-supported preview for our midweek show. And I would love for you to get to the rest of this show and all the other shows that we do here on the Politics Guys. This show is the Ideology Show. Justin and I are going to continue our conversation on Marxism. We've already covered liberalism. We've covered conservatism, and you'll get access to those shows as well when you become a supporter. We also have access to other shows. Ken and myself are currently going through the Federalist Papers, and we'd love for you to join us as we get into 2, 3, and 4 with Jay. Obviously, the writer Jay in this case. So if you want that and so much more, you've got to become a supporter of the show, and it just takes a couple of minutes. All you've got to do is head down to the show notes and click on the support link. That's going to get you access to this show and so many others like I just mentioned. You can also get access to our Discord group and a lot of other things. So head to the show notes now and become a supporter of the Politics Guys. If you just have your phone in your hand right now, you can always head to politicsguys.com/support, or you can head to patreon.com/Politics Guys. But however you do it, you're going to get these shows. You're going to get all of our shows ad-free. You're going to get access to our Discord group. You're going to get access to our back shows. Just, there's so much. Head now to the show notes or to politicsguys.com/support so that you can unlock the rest of this ad-supported preview episode. So I'm going to let you go do that right now. And in the meantime, I am going to give a great big thanks to the executive producers of the Politics Guys, who include Wilmer Marino, Daniel Toe, Ryan Beasley, Don Oglesby, Derek Schmidt, Dakota Heath, Jason Chrysler, Dave Dean, Jeremy Larson, and Brian Matza and Jody Miller. We'll be back with a full episode this weekend, as always. I hope you'll join us then.